Hi, I'm Annie Case, and I am Neil Irene's 5th grandchild. I am making this as a gift to my grandpa for his 82nd birthday. My grandpa is so generous, and he has helped so many people in so many positive ways. He has got me the coolest birthday presents and Christmas presents. He has been my Valentine on so many occasions by bringing me out to dinner and sending me boxes full of candy and stuffed animals. And he has helped me pay for college so that I can learn all of my passions and complete my dreams. And I could never repay him for all of the things that he has done for me. But last year, on his 81st birthday, he took us all out to eat at this restaurant in Casper called the Fire Rock. And I was talking to him, and he told me that he doesn't want any gifts, but what the most important thing to him is having his family there. And he loves us all so much. And so I'm making this video because we all love him so much. And this is a way that I can show it to him in a physical form, and I can also tell his story.
My name is Tammy Delier. I am Grandpa's oldest daughter. And so I have memories of when I was really little. And I must have been about 2 because Lori was a baby. And I have a lot of memories of all of us, including John and Amy, in the front seat of the pickup. All of us crammed in, you know, back in the day before seatbelts and before we had to have seatbelts on. And those aren't all good memories, but I do have some good memories of that. And one was when we were little. So I had to have been about 2 because we didn't have John. And my place to stand in the pickup when we were all in there was right behind Grandpa's shoulder. And so I felt like I was the big kid then, and Lori had to sit on Mom's lap, and I could see out the window and see everything. So that was way cool. But what was really cool was I got to have a piece of gum because Grandpa always chewed gum, and then Lori couldn't have one because she was too little. It was really hard on me when Lori got big enough to have a piece of gum, and I got too tall to stand there, and I had to sit in the middle. But that's one my favorite memories.
My name is Gordon Delier. I'm Neil Irene's son-in-law. Probably the favorite story, which was probably the roughest time we ever had, was when we had to move all the cows from the North Ranch, and we unloaded them there on Laramie, up on the mountain there, and we trailed them down to water, and then the cows stampeded with all the calves in the dark, and the horse left the ground, and all I thought about was, well, if I live through it, I'm turning her, I quit. Well, Neil, he laughed, and then next day we went back up there, and we had 2 cows that weren't paired up, so it was probably one of the worst times, but best times we ever had.
I'm Eli Charles Taylor.
And how old are you?
I'm 3. I go home with him. And
You come home and see him, and what about when you feed with him?
I feed with him.
Can you take him out?
Yes. Now
Yeah.
let me down.
Not yet. Can't go yet. You gotta wait.
Do you have any other thing to tell me about Grandpa's house?
Yes, I'm going to his house, and my dad will drive there.
Yeah?
That's for me.
Does Grandpa have cookies there for you?
No.
No.
What do we do all the time? Every morning we go there. What do you have with Grandpa? Coffee and cookies.
Coffee cookies.
Huh. Almost
Yes.
every time.
Yes, let me down.
Charles Delier. I'm a grandson. What do you want to know?
Favorite memory?
Favorite memory? I don't really have a favorite memory. I have a lot of them. I miss one of the best were when we'd go pair out all the pairs on Frog Creek and haul them back to the house. And I got to rope all of them and hold them down. Or they held them and I got to rope them. But I miss that, and definitely now with the team, getting to go out with him every day and learn a new memory of his is definitely a highlight. So
I am Emily Delia Velasquez. I am Grandpa Neil's first grandbaby. So I don't have one memory with Grandpa. I have so many because he's been such an intricate part of my life. He's gone from super strong cowboy to, you could ask him anything and he'd know it about cows and horses, to the best storyteller ever. We sat in a restaurant in college one time for 8 hours and he did nothing but tell stories, and everybody there stopped what they were doing, they stopped eating, and they just came around and sit and listen to cowboy stories. He's that big of an influence on the world, in my world. And he is the softest, sweetest, most kind and patient man with his great grandkids. And if you knew Grandpa, you would never expect that, but he is so kind and so gentle with them. And then he would load me up in his RV and we would go traveling all over and we would meet PRC cowboys, and here is this beautiful motorhome packed full of glittery rhinestone glitter everywhere all over the floors, and he would just take me in my rodeo food stuff and off we'd go, and I'd come out after destroying his bathroom with hairspray, and he would hand me a steak dinner and we would go to the rodeo afterwards and meet all sorts of influential people and just have a wonderful time together.
Hi, my name's Matthew, and I'm related to Neil because I married his granddaughter. And I think you can't really put Neil into one story. At least I can't, He's fun to be around, especially when you're working on stuff. I remember when we were putting the new chutes in and the bowl, and he was there to give us his expert opinion on that. And it was always just a lot of fun having him around.
My name is Emma Velasquez. Emily is my mom. My favorite story of Grandpa is that the first day he let me drive the tractor. So we had cereal with toppings on it. It was a great day.
See how old you are.
I am 6. I am
How old are you?
3.
What, do you have a favorite memory of Grandpa Neil?
I ride in a ranger.
Grandpa? And what do you do at his house?
I play at his house.
With Baldy Pate? Who do you ride? What's his name?
I ride Bobby Cake. Eli has come over to our house, and Eli has deck Uncle Tori's cut. And that's all.
I'm John, and Neil is my dad. My favorite memory, my favorite summer was 1979. I just got to being a freshman in high school, come home to the ranch. We had a cousin come out, and we were riding colts, and we got our dry cows in, and we rode dry cows every morning, and got on my first bronc, Donald Duck, and it was a fun summer. Probably the funniest thing I remember was we had a neighbor named Ted Schmidt, and Ted was old and he couldn't see very good, and he come over and ate dinner with us, and when he went to leave, he missed the road, and there used to be a lot of sagebrush there, and we're looking at his tail lights out the window, and they're just a-bouncing. And he goes up across the road and he stops. Well, I remember, Dad, when you went up there and you go up there to see if he's all right. A little bit later, you come back down and you were laughing so hard. I never seen you laugh that hard in my life. Your tears were rolling in your eyes. You're gasping for breath, and we couldn't get out of you what was so funny. But what was funny was when you got up there, Ted had actually drove across the main road, over the ditch, and up, and got hung up on a rock on the hill in his car. And he said when he went up there, he gets out just as you get up there, and walks around, and he bends over and looks at his headlights and goes, Oh, thunder! I didn't have my headlights on. No wonder I couldn't see nothing. And so that's the funniest thing I remember.
My name is Kip Irene. I'm his grandson. My dad is his son. So, yeah. My favorite story I can remember was 3 or 4. It was a long time ago, and we're unloading cake for the cows, and my grandpa let me use the skid steer, and just all by myself. Let me drive around afterwards. I don't remember. It was the best time of my life, and it was just because my grandpa let me go and have fun, and I don't think any grandparents would ever let their grandchildren do that.
I'm Amy Irene, and I am Neil Irene's youngest daughter. And when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time going with Dad. And I thought that I was just his slave, that he could not do all this work without me. But as I grew up, I understood that he was giving Mom a break from me. And so he was very good about taking me everywhere with him. So one of my favorites, a couple of my favorite stories, one of them is that there's on Frog Creek, there was a tree that was by the road, and that was the juicy fruit tree. And so when we would go up north and put out salt or mineral or put oil in the oilers, it'd get to be a long trip. But as we went on the trip, then Dad would say, "Oh, we'll stop by the juicy fruit tree." And so that kept me in tow going on this long route. And so then on the way, when we got done, then we would go through the Frog Creek pasture and stop at on the creek, and we'd go to this tree, and lo and behold, there would always be a pack of juicy fruit in the juicy fruit tree. And the second favorite story is one thing that I remember forever is we were gathering in the north pasture, and I was very young, and so on the east side there was this great big deep draw, and Dad sent me down that draw to bring cows up. Well, I got scared because I couldn't find anybody, and I didn't know if I was too far ahead or if I was too far behind or where, and I just panicked. And so all of a sudden I just took my horse really fast, and I went as fast as I could to find somebody, and I found Dad, and he told me, explained to me very kindly that when you ride, you don't ride down the bottom of the draw, you ride up on the hill, and then you can find people and know where you are. And he was very nice and helped me feel a lot better because I was scared to death. So there's my story.
I'm Echo Soneson, and Grandpa Neil is my grandpa. I'm Amy's daughter, and my favorite memory with Grandpa is how we played cards all the time. We always play pitch, and he always asks Annie and I to sit next to him, and then he always tries to get us to cheat a little bit. One of us is always the scorekeeper so that we can up our points a little, and it's weird. Every time he's like, "Echo and I, we're gonna win this one," and we don't show him our cards or anything, but we always do. He kind of has a weird trick with that. I don't know what it is. He knows. But I have a lot of favorite memories with Grandpa, and he's taught me a lot of things about horses, and I love his stories. He tells amazing stories, and no matter how many times you've heard the story, it always has a different detail in it the next time, and they're always interesting to know. So that's my favorite memory about Grandpa.
My name is James Soneson. Neil Irene is my grandfather. Truly blessed to have known a cowboy just like him. And my favorite memory of Grandpa is when I was younger and I was just starting to learn how to rope, and cattle are kind of expensive, and he bought me a Heliomatic, which really changed my game and made me rope a lot better.
I'm Lori Case, and I'm Neil's daughter. And my fun memory of Dad was whenever it would rain or would get a big snow, or whatever. It was always a great day because we were getting moisture. Meant we were going to have green grass in the summer. And so he'd always say, who wants to go for a ride? Because we'd have to check out and see where all it rained. Did it rain in the north pasture? Did it rain at Frog Creek? And we'd go zooming off in the truck and through the mud. And I remember saying, Dad, don't go in that snowbank. Dad, don't go there. We don't want to be stuck. We're too far from home. And but we always made it home, and it was always a really fun day to go out and play in the snow and in the rain. And to this day, when it rains, I like to take my kids out in the rain and just be out in the rain and smell the fresh rain. And no better smell than that. That's my favorite memory of my dad.
Hi, I'm Rick Case. I'm Neil Irene's son-in-law. I remember a time that we went out to the ranch and we were setting up a corral, a makeshift corral, and the lightning was popping all over. He was in the skid steer. I was setting those panels out there when he was setting them down, and that lightning was just popping all over, and we sat out there and did that until we got done. I was kind of scared. He didn't seem to bother him too much, but anyway, that's what I remember the most about Neil. Was that right around the first time we met.
So I'm dating Case. I'm Neil Irene's grandson, Lori and Rick Case's son. And I have a lot of favorite memories with Grandpa, but one of my favorites is when we went to Wickenburg. In Wickenburg, there was a trailer park, or like a RV park, kind of campground type thing. And we stayed the night there with Grandpa. And all day we played cards, and I won a lot, like always. But like during the day, it was so hot out, and Grandpa had a bike. We also had our bikes, so Grandpa rode bikes around with us for hours on ends. And at the end of the day, it was still like 100+ degrees. And so we went swimming around 9 o'clock and finally finished at 12. And Annie and I were so astonished that we were swimming that long, and it was still hot out because in Douglas it would just be freezing. And yeah, that's one of my favorite days with Grandpa. We also had strawberry shortcake, and that was a plus.
My name is Mary Thomas. Neil is my daughter-in-law's father. I am very happy he invites us to his house whenever there's a family gathering. He's very nice that way, and have a lot of good times at his house.
My name is Dennis Thomas. I remember Neil because he's my daughter-in-law's father. And I enjoyed shooting prairie dogs with him out to his ranch.
Hi, it's me again, and I am Lori Case's daughter. And so I've asked everybody to tell me how they're related to Grandpa and a favorite memory that they had. And I've been thinking about what my favorite memory of Grandpa was, and I have a lot. But one of my all-time favorite memories that I've wanted to share with you was when I was a little girl. I was in the intermediate school, and at that time my grandpa was trucking, and it was in the winter, and I remember that we had a snow day at school, so it was canceled. And I heard that my grandpa was out at Esterbrook at Echo's house. And so I begged my dad to bring me out there so I could hang out with them. And he didn't want to because the roads were really slick, but I talked him into it. And so we went out there, and I remember that we played cards for hours and hours, like all day long we played cards. And we played my family's all-time favorite game, which is pitch. And we also played rummy. And I mean, my grandpa just taught us all that he knew about cards, and we had so much fun hanging out with him. And when my dad came and got me at the end of the day, I was just so happy to have had the whole day with two of my favorite people, my grandpa and Echo. And then as I was thinking about it, I realized how important it was for me to do this video for Grandpa. I started this video in November of 2017, and I've been working on it for a little over 8 months now, and I'm so excited to give it to him. But it was so awesome because my passion is photography and videography, and I got to show his dream and his story through my passion. And I know that this is going to be one of the most important things that I own in my life. And so I just really wanted to show his story in a way that I knew how. And so here is My Dream is to Be a Rancher.
Neil Irene was born in 1936 in Hannah, Wyoming. That was in the end of the Depression, you know, and it was pretty tough times. But we was poor as hell when we grew up, but we never did know it. The ranch kids all had plenty to eat. I remember my mom, how hard she had to work, doing all her work. Talking about an old washing machine she had with a gasoline engine on it and a Kickstarter like on a motorcycle, and they didn't start good, and so she had to crank it 50 times. Had an exhaust pipe you stuck out the door. And that was really modern equipment at that time. My folks had 3 kids, Dorothy, Marilyn, and me, all in 3 years. And then 10 years later, Cheryl came along. And then 25 years after my birthday, Joe was born. My mother was 50 years old when he was born. So that's kind of different. So they wasn't growing up with us, just Dorothy and Marilyn and I. Well, we'd done a lot of ice skating, yeah. Dorothy and I did on the river. We'd get home from school and we'd get our ice skates on pretty near every night and go skating. Marilyn didn't really like it, but we did. And we went to school in Hill Mountain and we walked to school. We just lived down the river about a mile, but I think the only time we really got taken to school was in 1949 when the winter was so hard. Dad take us to school and team and sled. Then he'd feed hay all day and then come back and get us, take us home. But that was a pretty scary winter. It was 40 below zero and a 50-mile-an-hour wind a lot. And lots of snow. But anyway, it was all different. When I was growing up, 90% of the people had a brogue of some kind, you know, like accent, like German, Swede, Finns. There's quite a lot of Finn people around there. And Sweden, you know, they talked. And we didn't have TV, but on a radio, you could tell from anywhere in the United States where somebody's from by their accent. They all had a different accent. Now everybody pretty much talks the same. They kind of landed in Minnesota, and then because they was timbermen, you know, loggers, and most of them finally left Minnesota and come out here to work in the timber. And they hewed a lot of ties with by hand, and then in the wintertime they'd haul them down along the river with teams and bobsleds and stack them up. And when the spring come and the water started running good, they'd go throw them in the river and float them down to Medicine Bow, and they had a place right there by that railroad where they picked them up and got them out of there, hauled them to Laramie and treated them. But that was quite a deal, that tie float down the river. But yeah, my grandpa worked in there, or done a lot of that. And he married, the Bobergs had the ranch there, and he married one of the Boberg girls and then leased it and was there, and that's where my dad and his brothers was raised. In 1930, my grandpa bought a ranch north of Hannah at Leo, and they moved over there. Anyway, that's kind of the way it was. We learned reading, writing, and arithmetic was the main thing, and quite a lot of history. And we got good history of how the United States was founded and all about it. And the Declaration of Independence and some of those speeches, we had to memorize them. And that was really serious stuff in history that they really taught about how this country was founded and put together and all that, which they don't much anymore. And God, when I was in high school, we had we had to recite every president, and we had to know them all, memorize the name of all of them. There wasn't quite so many then, but it was talking about us having enough to eat. Us ranch kids that took lunch boxes to school, and the school teachers made us leave them down in the coat room. And there was some kids around town there that wasn't getting enough to eat. They'd go down and steal our lunches. Of course, those kids was madder than hell, but the teachers wouldn't do anything about it because they knew they was really hungry. The only thing they really ate the good stuff out of it. You know, if you had any dessert, it was gone. They had a lot of dances at Elk Mountain at that time. You know, and parties like the Ladies' Aid or those women would put on a deal and they'd then have a dance in Oddfellow Hall there in Elk Mountain. There was dances, and then they put on a lot of schools had dances about every week. There was a Walmsley that could play the piano real good, and he'd come play for us. Just donate their time, you know. But we'd have a lot of dances and stuff, get together like that. So they'd have a big supper every once in a while, and all the ladies would take in all of the food, you know, and have a big supper, and then maybe a dance afterwards. And you couldn't go very far, you know. We even had a basketball team for a few years, but then that quit. And when I was in the 7th, 8th grade and freshman, we went into Hannah to practice in our ball games. And then our team only had 6 or 7 guys on it. But anyway, then they discontinued that, but that was really the only sports we ever had. 3. There's 2 boys and a girl. I still tell her, and she gets mad at me, that she was the prettiest girl in our class. So. My dad broke hundreds of horses. All through the war, he'd work all day, you know, like in hay, and then go ride 2 or 3 broncs at night and get them going, riding broke horses all. And he'd done most of that after supper. And because to make a little money, you know. And where Ab was, they raised lots of horses, so they had more than they could get rode. And that's what most of them were. But anyway, us kids would go up there and sit in the crowd and watch him. And then he used them for a wrangle horse after he rode them once or twice. We'd be wrangling horses, and we'd have our teams harnessed up and breakfast at 6 o'clock. Go hay all day and get in supper time at 6 o'clock, have supper, and then he'd go fool with some of them horses. And we never really thought a lot of it, but that's just the way it was. And our school started the day after Labor Day, on Tuesday after Labor Day. So I know every year that I went to school, all 12 years, that was that way. So, but that was so they started later because the ranchers was through haying then, and they knew them, especially the high school kids, had to be in haying. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know just how old I was, but probably about 7 years old. I was raking hay when we was haying, because that was in World War II, and they left one able-bodied person at each ranch and each farm because they had to feed the nation. And all that was left to do the work was one guy and the family, you know. And so they was always short-handed, so we grew up working. When we was 10 years old, we thought we was grown-up men. And I raked hay with the team in a hay rake for, I was so short-legged I couldn't reach the pedals, so Uncle Johnny, my great uncle, cut a seat spring down in half, so I drove an old team they called Mike and Brownie. They was quite a pair of horses. So my first horse, yeah, he was a little gray horse. They called him Gray Pony. But yeah, that's the first one I had. But we had a bunch of old saddle horses us kids rode, and some really good ones. And the older we got, the better horses we got. I like to ride a horse out here that somebody else couldn't ride out in the ranch. That was my favorite deal. But I didn't like to compete, and I just didn't like competition like that. As far as saddle horses, I broke lots of saddle horses to ride. And if somebody had one that they couldn't ride, I really enjoyed getting to them and riding them for them. So when I worked for my Uncle Av, we broke lots of horses, 10, 15 at a time. Done a lot of work, a lot on a horse, you know, gathering cattle and horses and everything else. We raised lots of horses at that time, and they was scattered out. And I don't know what year I went on the horse roundup first, but it was open country from Medicine Bow to Bridger Valley at that time. You wouldn't hit a fence all the way. There was some pastures fenced in here and there, but not very big. You could go all the way across there, clear to Bridger Valley before you got it into fences. But we was about 3 weeks on horse roundup as soon as school was out, and then calf roundup and brand calves till 1st of July per year. And then the haying come. It was fun haying when we hayed with horses, and then when they got to haying with machinery, it was just a boring damn job. But horses, there was always some excitement happening. We used to gather a lot of wild horses for people out north of Medicine Bow, Then John Hanson up on the desert west of Rollins had a lot of horses, nobody take care of them, and he hired us to go up there and several years and gather them horses. They was some really wild ones up there, regular wild horses. We didn't know where they was at, and we seen an old desert Mustanger at a rodeo, and he lived up in the country all his life. And Dad asked him where them horses mostly was, the Hansons. And always said, you guys won't have any trouble gathering them. He said, nobody's messed with them for 4 or 5 years. And he said, they're all in the pasture up there now. Well, we went up there and went into that pasture and found out it had some over 400 sections in it, 400 square miles. So you could air a horse out pretty good in that. I think there was 12 townships in there is what it was. Anyway, it was a big country. But that's all I wanted when I went through school and everything. To work livestock, be on a horse, spend most of my time on a horse. That was all I really wanted, and that's the way I lived. And I probably spent about half my life on a horse, saddle horse. But he was talking about getting scrap metal for the army, you know, the military. And us kids carried every scrap iron we could find had a pile out there in front of the schoolhouse about 10 feet high. They finally come and got it.
Wow.
But and that really went on, and people really they don't believe it when they hear it anymore, but it was. And it was quite a deal. I'll tell you, everybody was in the army. My uncle, his Vernon, his younger brother, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, he joined the Navy the next day. And he was over in the Pacific Ocean all the time. Southern Pacific, mostly, I think, but and right up around Japan and up in there too. But yeah, he come back. All right. He was a mechanic on a ship, and had quite a few friends that was in the infantry, and they didn't make it back. A friend of mine, good friend of our family, John Buckles, he started out with old patent in South Africa, and then went clear up through Italy and there and marched into Berlin when they captured him. And you probably never seen the shows, but they had shows about that, movies, that he marched them guys so hard that they wore the shoes out, and it was like a foot of snow on the ground, and they left a bloody trail all the way. It was just a red trail, and I seen that on movies, and it was the actual pictures. And John said, well, it wasn't near as bright in that movie it was in there. They marched right into Berlin. And that was the end of the war, but it was pretty bad. Bad times. And the Korean War, I had some friends that killed in it, and some that was, most of them that I knew. They was just 2 or 3 grades ahead of me. I was too young, but there was in there, friends of mine. They put out some cold, rough days in Korea. Then wars like that is terrible. So. During the war, it was pretty rough times, you know. We always had plenty to eat and everything. And had one pickup on the ranch, and we all went to a picture show once in a while. Mom and Dad and the 3 kids. get to go to a picture show about once a month in Hannah. But we was all happy. Thought it was great. And then after the World War II, 1948 was probably the best year ranchers ever had. And cattle prices went up right after the war. A lot of equipment that's around the country was bought in 1958. That old hay rack sitting down here, that hay wagon you seen, that was, Hank had bought 2 of them over the Hill Mountains. It came from there, that ranch over here. But anyway, it was pretty good, so everybody bought equipment that year. Well, she was the Cheesebro, and they was raised up right on the corner of Hill Mountain. And of course, I knew her ever since we was just little. But they didn't go to school down there. Tried to a couple years, but the road was so bad up there they couldn't get back and forth. And Dorothy took them to Laramie, and they went to school there. Then Fort Collins. So they wasn't in school, but I knew them all my life. So anyway, we was raised all the same bunch. We grew up poor as hell. When my wife and I got married, I had $150 in the bank, and that's all. But it was big dollars then. It was different than it was now. Gas was 25 cents a gallon, I think. And I worked for her dad, Henry Cheesebro, on the UL Ranch up there for 10 years. And I had hay fever so bad from pine trees and everything else, and hay, and that was a big hay ranch. And finally, the little doctor in Cheyenne was a specialist on allergies, and he told me I better go to Arizona where it was dry, or I wouldn't live very long. I was going to get asthma. And Arizona didn't sound too good to me, so that's why we come over in northeastern Wyoming, because that's the driest part of Wyoming, and that's the reason we went. I know damn well it was the windiest ranch in Wyoming, if you can believe that. So it did blow. We picked the driest place in one of the driest parts of Wyoming and come out there. Bought it, got a ranch, and I had a couple friends that helped me buy a ranch, and we got started on it. And I had a little bunch of cows, about 60 head of cows when we went out there. Some damn good horses. Bunch of kids. Had one after we got out there. When we moved out there, Tim was real pregnant with Amy. Well, she was born about a month afterwards. But anyway, that was quite a move. When we got out there, I think it got down to 30 below zero that night. God, it was cold. We got there, had a whole bunch of friends help us haul our stuff out there, and we opened the front doors and the back doors and was packing in stuff, and in that cold weather, and that old house wasn't too great anyway, and it was cold in there, you know. We got in with like the stove and the refrigerator and all that stuff, and then they had a layer of ice on them right quick. When our kids was little, John and Lori and Amy, they had to help with the livestock, and that's just the way it was. If we couldn't make it work, we had that. And they helped, and they was horseback a lot. But I had some good old horses they rode. And I had a sorrel horse that would buck a little once in a while. And one day we was moving some cattle out of cows and calves, and they was running back and was having trouble, and my horse got tired, and I traded with Tammy, and she rode that old sorrel horse. And she thought, man, she'd never been on a really good horse like that, and was happy with it. And anyway, they was gonna get their 4-H calves in the summer, their cows with their calves, the 3 kids, and she was gonna ride that old sorrel horse. And I said, no, you better not ride him. Oh yes, I'll ride him, I wanna ride him, I wanna ride him. John said, oh, it won't hurt her to get bucked off. And she got on that horse down there by the Krell gate, and he bucked her off and broke her collarbone. So that wasn't good. That's pretty owie, you know, when you break your collarbone. So she, after that, she would respect what you told her. But that's the only really accident we had with them. She was a person, we worked a lot of cattle outside, you know, and cut them out of a bunch. And Lori'd set out there, she'd be out and hold up, but when you got whatever you cut out, when you got through, she'd tell you how many it was. And that's hard to keep track of when they're coming out, you know, different times and one thing and another. But she'd be all right, and we'd bunch them up and count them, and yeah, she was always right. Timmy she had Amy, a little baby, you know. So her and Amy would ride in the pickup. So one time we had it was Kevin and Tammy. Amy wasn't in school yet. Tim would go out there in the pickup when it was really stormy, and I'd go horseback, and if we found a cold calf, we'd put it in the pickup, you know, and found one that was really pretty well gone. And I put him in the front of the pickup by the heater down on the floor. Amy went to rubbing it with a gunny sack and working on it. And neither one of Tim or I thought that it would live. And she said, Mom, if this lives, can I have it? It was a heifer calf. And Tim said, yeah, Amy, if it lives, you can have it. I got it home and took it down in the basement, and we had a back vibrator, a heater. It was pretty big. And I think Hank and Dorothy had it and sent it and left it at our house. Anyway, she put it on the floor and that calf on it and turned the heat up in the vibrator, and she kept working on that calf all morning, and about noon she got some milk in it, and it lived. So that started her cow herd. Anyway, they was good help, and that's the only way we could make the ranch work. Yeah, she taught 2 or 3 years, and I don't remember how many, but there was our kids and the Stoddard kids and about 3 Rothluners, I think. We shipped a trailer load of dry cows, and we got the check, and she said, this is more than I made working all year, and she said, I can make more, we'd be further ahead if I helped on the ranch. So they did. Then our kids drove to school. Amy drove to school when she was in the 1st grade, I think. They drove pickups out in the ranch, you know, all the time, and they knew how to run pickup and drive. One time I was building a new fence, and I had Lori driving this old pickup along, and I was throwing the posts off, And she couldn't reach the pedals, but she could steer it, and I put it in first gear and pulled the throttle out a little bit, not very much. She drove it along down the fence, and I hollered at her to stop, and she shut the key off. And anyway, she was, I don't know how it happened, but she was starting to get out of the pickup and step down, and I just happened to look, and there was a rattlesnake coiled up there. She was going to step right in the middle of it. And I hollered, and get back in. And probably by the sound of my voice, she knew something was wrong. She did. There, that snake was right there, coiled up, ready to strike anybody. When did we get this ranch? In 21? In 2011, I think it was. Wasn't it? I don't remember now. Anyway, it belonged to my father-in-law, you know, and then he passed away, and then we leased it for a few years, and then I bought it from my sister-in-law's. So that was after Tim had died. And he bought this ranch in 70 or 71. And then back when I bought it from my sister-in-law's, they each got as much as he'd paid for the whole ranch to start with. That's the way it went up, you know, in value that much, so in that amount of years. And one of the reasons that I like this ranch, it's all deeded ground, which when we had a ranch out north of that was in the Thunder Basin Grazing Association. And so we got a chance to sell it, and we sold it and bought this. And I owned a third interest in it. And there's about 14,000 deeded acres here. About half of it's on the west side of the highway, and the highway goes right about through the middle of it, and the railroad. And we had at least, and Tammy and Gordon was here for several years when we was leasing it. And they got quite a few cows put together. We let them run some cows here. And well, I think Tammy wintered, or this summer had her out 700 head, I think, altogether. We leased it to Tammy and Gordon, so I just camped here. Took up setter's rule here. Then after my wife died, I was alone down there at that ranch, and it was, you know, it was altogether different. You're batching and living way out in the country alone. I had lots of arthritis, and I decided I'd do something else, so we sold that and bought this, and Tammy and Gordon's been leasing it ever since. And I took off, and we had a good truck that we hauled cattle back and forth in, so I done some trucking and then got in with a bunch of done long hauling, and done that for pretty near 15 years, I think, 10 years, I guess. I had 3 Peterbilt trucks and put about 700,000 miles on each one of them. So we was all over the United States. I was in every state except New England once. I never got it. I followed along the California line, or not California, but a New York line, but I never was out north of there. I was in Florida when a couple of hurricanes was going on. That'll get your attention. I spent quite a few winters down in Arizona, and I liked Wickenburg. There's people that, well, look like people around this area. And nice people, and then all the team ropers go down there in the wintertime, so it's just full of team ropers, and there's all good guys, you know. But I like that area down there. I don't know. It was good for my arthritis, and that's why I went down there. And got 3 little great-grandkids, and they're characters. Yeah. Wonderful kids, I think. Eli, he's a real boy now, I'll tell you. And he's always in a hurry and a going, kind of on a trot. It's hard to say. Everything, if he comes in the house, his own house or your house or whatever, everything that's on the tables or chairs or something, it's got to be on the floor. So that's the first thing he does, is throw everything in the floor. So you go over to Charles's house when he's there, and everything's on the floor, everything. And his toy box and everything, that's the first thing he does, dump it on the floor and scatter it out. You can't hardly walk through it. I don't know, that's what he likes, so. Anyway, he's a character. Emma is going to kindergarten now, and she's a pretty nice girl, I think. And little Matt, I call him Buckaroo. He isn't on a run like Eloy, but he's going steady. And when he's outside here on the ranch, you gotta keep an eye on him. He just walks and not running around, but he'll be gone and down in the horse grill. It seems like faster than you can bat your eyes. And Eli, he's on a run and a going. They're a lot of fun. I wished my wife could see all my grandkids. She'd be really proud of them. Saddens all of us because she was a wonderful person. And that's the big reason I got such good grandkids and kids. So, and they're all hard workers and have good jobs, that's why. But I'm really proud of all of them, so. I'm like an old guy that worked for Hank. That was my grandfather, our stepfather. He was from Cheyenne, but he said, Hank asked him how many kids he had, and he said, I got 9 kids and I love them all, even the mean ones. So that's why I am, even the mean ones. You know how mean they are. So, anyhow. Well, that's all I wanted when I grew up, was just to be a rancher. And I finally got it done, but that's the American dream, and it worked out for us.
I love you, Grandpa, so much. I love Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
Love you, Dad. Glad that the whole family's here in Douglas, and we get together when we can. It's been an awesome couple years.
Love you, Grandpa.
I love you.
I love you, Dad.
I love you. I'm glad you're my dad.
Love you, Dad.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
Love you, Grandpa.
We all love you so much, Grandpa, and I love you so much. Happy birthday.